Hi, welcome back. This is part two of creating a JavaScript app using Bootstrap. And this is going to be a web app initially, and then we are going to convert it to a mobile app using the Ionic framework and show how we can use all of our JavaScript, jQuery, HTML, and CSS skills inside of the Ionic framework and do cross-platform development that way. So we're starting with a very basic app. At this point, the app that we have looks like this. We have a nice little typo right there. First thing, so we can add squares, circles, triangles, and clear shapes. So a couple things I want to do in this section of the tutorial. First of all, I want to be able to save a screenshot of our art as a PNG. And the second thing I want to do is fix this typo. I also want to have a timer that we can just click on and have these shapes appear on a time interval, and then a button to click that timer off. And once we have that functionality going, this create, abstract, whatever mathematical art app will be ready to convert over to cross-platform development using the Ionic framework. And so along the way, we're about to learn a little bit of jQuery. We're gonna learn a little more JavaScript and how to link in JavaScript libraries. So let's get started. All right. So first, why don't we just go ahead and add our two buttons. Start with the HTML. So if I want a button for start and a button for stop for a timer that we're going to set up, and we'll call this timed art. Timed art stop. Okay, we'll set those two buttons. So we are also going to want to, let's see, we've got our scripts all the way down here. So let's bring that up a bit. We've already got jQuery, and let's set up the infrastructure for our jQuery ability to capture screenshots and save them of just that div. So we can start with, we can center this. And close that div. Give my typing right now. And then let's have an input, and let's give it an ID. We can call this prev image. Type, we'll let the browser know it's a button, and value, we can say preview, and we'll close that input field. Let's have a link, and this is going to be important for the download, and we'll call this convert image, and we're going to give it an href, but we're just going to set it for now to default to this page, and we can say download last preview, and then close that A. What's going on here? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then let's just put in a line break, and then we'll just do a standard H3. We could get a little bootstrappy here, but just to keep things simple for now, let's do that. And then we need a space for our images. So just call this images, and we can close that there. All right, so that's all the infrastructure we need in our HTML side. So over in art.js, the first thing that occurs to me is that we need a way to convert HTML to, so this is HTML right here. We need to convert it to an image, to a PNG. So let's Google it and see if there's a JavaScript library for converting HTML to So let's see what our first Stack Overflow tells us, and HTML to Canvas is what it recommends. I have in fact tested this out, so I know that it works, and they have a nice little screenshot there now. So we could, and we will later, use npm to install this. However, for now, we can just get this HTML to Canvas JS, and we can save it right here in MathArt. There we go. All right, and we have a nice little example about how to. So what this is doing is it is appending to our document canvas element. So this will get us from HTML to canvas. So let's take a look at that syntax. All right. Now over in our HTML, first let's do a little bit of cleanup here. So we have an HTML2 canvas JS in there. There's a lot of simplification that can occur here. So you see these variables we keep using again and again. Those indicate, and it's the same kind of function, you know, style top left, style. Those indicate that we could probably simplify this code a bit and unify it a bit. So let's have a variable, a global variable called canvas width, and set that to 740. A variable called canvas height, and set that to 340. And let's have a var called shape max dimensions, which we can set to 40, because that's the value we keep using, and a variable called shape min dimensions, and set that to 40 or to 20, because that is our minimum value. So you see down here we have this 40 and 20 we keep using. Those should be global variables, because if we change them, we want them changed throughout the code. We're also going to need a variable for the canvas element that's going to be global, and eventually we'll need a variable for the timer that we're going to set for the timed art. All right, so let's simplify this code a bit. Let's make a function. Let's see here. Yeah, let's make a function up here at the top. Well, let's make it right here so we can still see what we're doing. And we'll just call this random dimension. And for this, we can we can return a variable. We don't want to return a variable. We can return parse int math.random times, and here we want candidate's width, so that's our 740, and then we'll add px here. That's it. Ooh, no, this is our dimension. So for this we can do random, we'll call this function random x position. And we can just duplicate that for y. Random y position. And for this instead, we're going to do canvas height. Again, we'll add px. And then up here, we can just call random x position. And for here, we can call random y position. We can do the same for these. And we'll just have a nice, clean, unified code where we have much more separation of function, specialization of function, and encapsulation. So we have get random color, that works the way that it should. So now for rand width and rand height, notice we're doing the exact same function. And so let's have now our function random dimension, and for this one we'll return parse int oops. Oh, you know what? We don't even need these. Parse int math.random, and we'll multiply by shape max d, and then we will add shape mindy, and then we will add px to the end. And maybe this one we would want additional parentheses on. Alright, parse int. Oh, I see why I was doing that. Okay. We want to just force it to add this last so that we get a string out of it. That would likely happen anyways, but let's just not take any chances. Alright, so now for all this code here, all we have to do every time is call random. And the same is true here. Oops. And here. Alright, and then where's our triangles? Okay, so here's our triangle. So we can do rand x position. Oops. Rand y position. And then the same code here. So we want rand. All right. We've simplified that code quite a bit now. So next, let's add some jQuery. All right, so notice that we've already linked to jQuery down here, and we're linking to our art script up here. So we're going to use jQuery in our art script, so I'm actually going to put that link now down below our link to our jQuery, so jQuery loads first. And we want to link to our HTML to canvas.js, which we now have in our folder because we downloaded it. So we need that JavaScript library. Okay, so we have that now. So because we've linked to it, and in fact, actually, let's link to it before we call art, because in art we're going to call some functions of HTML canvas. So that is the proper order we need. Let's just take note here. We have prev image and conv image. Prev image, conv image, start and stop. Okay. So now over here in HTML to canvas, let's actually, we don't need to look at that. Let's take a look at our art, and I won't worry about the start and stop yet. Just clean these up a little bit, and let's pull these up here. So we have all of our add square, add circle, and add triangle down here. So at this point I'm going to actually collapse these because I don't need to look at them. I don't need to look at clear all either. So do want a space there though. And front click is not going to change either. Collapse that for some reason. All right. Let's leave that open. Interesting. Usually you can collapse buttons like this, but that's okay. All right. So now what do we need to do? Let's do some jQuery. So for jQuery, we begin with a $sign to alert the browser as it interprets this JavaScript that it's about to get some jQuery code. So it will look in those libraries for what we need. So we're going to have the syntax for jQuery is selector first. So we're going to look for something. This is going to be our prev image selector, and then after the selector in jQuery comes the action. So our action is going to be on click. So when you click preview, we want a function to fire, and that function is going to, before we forget, add that there. The function is going to call HTML to canvas, and it's going to get, we'll use a query selector to find the art. So we're going to use the document module. This is a little different way of using it. This is the jQuery method for grabbing an element. So we'll get our art queries, and we need to pass in a string here. So we'll get our art div area, and then we're going to have a canvas that will append. Let's put semicolon there before we forget. To our document body. So we'll just add it at the very bottom, and we'll use the append child method and put the canvas in there. So this is actually going to create a canvas. We don't have one yet. And canvas is a HTML tag like this with some special attributes. In particular, we can convert it to URL data and then to an image. There's lots of stuff you can do with a canvas. You can animate, you can make games, you can all kinds of stuff. But for now, all we really want is to create it and add it with just a few lines of JavaScript code. I'll save that. All right, and let's test that out. So at this point, we should be able to preview. Got a little tiny button there. Alright, so we can preview, but we're not seeing any shapes. So let's see what's going on with that. Pull up my debugger here. We have a whole bunch of errors. Okay, so let's go to our console. Math.random. Oh. Where am I doing that? Right there. It is too a function. Let's see. Oh. Right. Forgot about that. Alright. Save that again and go. And let me see what's wrong with our button. Why is that button so small? I'm wondering. So we have an input. We have input with an ID and a value. Oh. There we go. So now our button will say preview and be as big as that. Alright, let's go back. So we can add triangles and circles. We have all our functionality still. And if we hit preview, great. We get a nice little preview right there. And it is an actual canvas element that we could look at inside of attached to the end here of our body. So right before the body closing tag, we just add one, and we can add some more. Preview again, and we get another one. That one didn't have any shapes. Add a lot more shapes. Preview again. We have 3 now. Okay, cool. So now I want to be able to save the last preview. So this one as a PNG with this download. So the way that we're going to do that, again, is using jQuery. So if I go over here to my art.js, and we're going to have, again, jQuery syntax. So we start with $, and we'll have a selector, and this selector is going to be our what was it called? Image convert, I think. Let's see. Convert image. Okay, conv image. So we want conv image, and again we'll have an on click, and we'll fire off another function. And that function is going to need a variable for the image data. And what we'll do is in here we can actually, so when we create a canvas, we can set this global get canvas variable equal to the canvas we've just created. So that'll always get assigned to the very last canvas we're previewing. And now we have access to get canvas, the global variable, so the last canvas that we have as a preview, we can call it its methods like this. And canvas has a nice method called toDataURL, and we can give it a type. And then we need to change this data just a little bit with the replace function. And so we're going to do a backslash, and we want everything basically in the data section, and there we want a /, and then we want a \png. So all the data we're going to replace with this data application octet stream, and that's just because of the format that our the format that we need to be able to download this for the browser to interpret. So this is going to force the browser to interpret this as data to download when somebody clicks on the appropriate thing. But first we need to, so again we'll use some jQuery. So here's our selector, and this is going to be so now we'll use the convert image button, and we'll set its attribute to, the attribute we're going to set is download, and we're going to call it, the thing we'll download, we'll call image.png, and we'll set the attribute of that, so its href will make download this new data. So when somebody clicks on it, first of all we change the we grab the image data from Canvas, we replace it so it's the appropriate format for download, and that forces the browser to download it, and then we change the download attribute before it downloads anything to the name image.png and with the new data. Okay, so let's test that out. No errors so far. So let's preview and let's download. What happened there? Alright, so we bounced back. So it's not working yet. Did we get any errors to help us out? No, we did not. Alright, let's see what's going on here. We have oh, these are tags for the selectors. I'm so silly. Alright, that should do it. Let's try this again. And preview it, download. Boom. Alright, there we go. We've got it. So just like that, we have the ability to get a bunch of previews and download them. So we can save our beautiful art and it doesn't disappear as soon as we clear shapes. So now let's work on the time dart stop, time dart start, time dart stop functionality. And this is going to take us a little further into what JavaScript can do. Okay, so let's switch over to Atom, and we're going to need 2 more buttons here. So we'll call this one Seta, start, and this one stop. And the ID is also start, so we'll link it to that start button on the other side, on the HTML side, the stop button, and then we want start on click, stop on click. Alright, and for the functions, we're going to need, so we have a global variable for our timer. Let's have a function called timed art start. Timed art start. And timed art stop. And all we're going to do for these is we will set an interval timeout. So in JavaScript, the closest we can get to this kind of functionality is we can set that timer variable above the global variable to set interval, and we can call a function that we're going to call every interval. So we'll make this function generate random art, and we'll call it generate random. And for the interval, we can set it to every second or every 1,000 milliseconds. Then to stop, all we have to do is clear interval, and then it's just going to clear the interval associated with that timer. There's a little bit of a bug involved in doing it this way, which we will actually just leave as an Easter egg because it's kind of cool. Basically, we can get lots of timer intervals going, but we can only clear the last one. The advantage of that is you can get some cool visual effects, and it doesn't really affect the functionality of the app, so I'm going to leave it as an Easter egg. Alright, so now we need a generate random art function. So for this, we can just have a shape variable which will make a number between 1 and 3. With that old trick. And then we can do a switch. So in JavaScript we can do switch statements where depending on what value we have for, we get returned for by this parseInt every time generate random gets called. We can say, hey, is it a 0? If so, let's add square, and then break. Is it a 1? And you notice we have a semicolon there. Let's add some tabs here so we can see what's associated with what. If so, we can add circle, and then break out of that method. And for finally, if we get a 2, so sorry, we'll get a number between 0 and 2. If we get a 2, we want to add a triangle and break. And you always want to have a default for case statements. We can break for that too. Okay. That's it. That is all we need to do. We already have the functionality to add these things. So let's test it out. go. We got a triangle, triangle over here, an ellipse, another triangle, ellipse. Can I get any rectangles? Yay! Okay, cool. So now let's test the stop functionality. Nothing. Can we still do a preview? Sure can. We download? We sure can. Okay. Now the bug I was telling you about is this. If we click this many times, we will get many timer intervals going at once, and we don't have a function to stop them all. But I kind of like it. I think you can get some cool artifacts going with this kind of thing. So you can still preview it and download it and get a nice little canvas of interesting shapes there. Alright, so before my browser crashes completely though, let's close that. Alright, so that is all the functionality I wanted to add. I'm going to leave that one bug in as an Easter egg for now. It would be simple enough to stop it, but we would perhaps need to make our interval recursive or have or stop all interval that are happening. Okay, that's really it. So what we're gonna do with this is we will recreate this functionality. We'll kind of convert this over to the Ionic framework, and the purpose of this is not to make a killer, like, multi-billion-dollar app of like awesome artwork that you generate on the fly, but rather to show how you can go from JavaScript, Bootstrap, HTML, CSS, and jQuery over to Ionic and not lose any of that functionality and gain quite a bit more functionality. So in the next part, that's what we'll be doing, and that way we can turn this web app into a cross-platform app with just as much functionality and perhaps a little more. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching.